The people on social who will bend over to be like, look, I've got a little roll of fat.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, from a social media perspective, like, what are you hearing on social right now from the plus community? Like, what are folks talking about?
Oh, I love that question. Are people in the plus size community talking or outside of it? Because I think those are two different answers.
Both, perhaps.
So I think within the plus size community itself, there's definitely a want for people to be more exclusive, to be more radically kind of like body positive, and being happy with being plus size or fat, whatever word you want to use. They're both fine. But the thing that I think we're seeing is a lot of brands on social and even a lot of influencers are kind of turning their backs on the plus size community a lot. I think I've seen that across a lot of different brands when it comes to being plus size.
Well, what does that mean, turning their backs? I need you to clarify.
Like making sizes smaller, making it cool to be smaller or thinner. Even like trolls, I think, are a big part of it. People saying things in comments like lose weight, commenting different things like that. I think we're kind of going back a little bit further than we need to.
I wonder if that has to do with like the mid-size conversation, right? Like back in my day, like it makes me feel really old. Like, you know, I've been doing the TCF turns 15 this year. And so I remember the conversation about being in-betweenies.
Yeah.
Like that's what they were called. But now it's like shifted to this whole mid-size conversation. And I wonder, because of that, has that taken away from or has like shifted like the motivation cause with, you know, the plus size conversation? Like, I feel like, you know, some brands, you find more retailers that are like, will size down to a 10 before they'll size up to a 5X.
We did get a little lost on the way with the mid-size conversation. There should be a place for everyone. There should be a community for everyone. Mid-size people were left out of a ton of conversations. But I also think we can't take from the cup that in a plus size community we've been pouring into that. There's enough room for everybody. And I think by making sure that like all sizes are taken care of, like it really does uplift plus size. And by uplifting plus size communities, we're also uplifting everyone else.
Yeah.
Because that's where body positivity started, is really
in the plus
just
space.
Yeah, in the plus
and
space.
I think that's like important to know and keep in mind. Like, I think oftentimes words and movements are like ideologies become movements, and then they kind of jump the shark. Like once we saw the commodification of body positivity, like it just kind of lost, and you have brands using hashtags, and it's like, yo, where's the positivity? Where's the inclusivity, right? I guess like my question to you then is like, do you see a reclamation of like, no, body positivity is ours? Like, you need to like understand like a teaching or an awareness. Do you see that happening, and where do you see it happening?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything starting on social, like you're able to see those conversations happen in real time. And you can see that consumers and influencers, everybody, like every single person wants to have a place. And I think by reclaiming that body positivity, bringing it back kind of home into the plus size community, like I said, is great for everyone. Like that's where everyone can benefit. Because if we're uplifting, you know, the minorities, whether that's like minority communities like plus size people or including like, you know, people of color, then we have more room for everybody else. Like it's a safer and happier place for everyone across the board. And I think people are scared that if they don't fit into like the plus size community by talking about body positivity, that like they're not allowed to feel good or positive about their bodies. And it's like, that's not what it is.
And
at
I
all.
feel like that's like a very extreme kind of definition, right? It's like, it's almost that feeling kind of immediately gives me like the visual of like the people on social who will bend over to be like, look, I've got a little roll of fat.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm like, talk to me when you just sitting or just standing and got it. Like, it's not the same. And like and I think what's really important, I think in this hyper individualistic kind of society that we're in, like it's easy to forget about the sum. Like the whole, right? Like even for me, like in my journey, like I've had to acknowledge and recognize like my own privilege, right? Like I guess would be called like a small fat. I recognize that, and I also realize that like I have certain lived experiences and privileges that, you know, not a lot of people do. And so for me, what I do, especially with TCF, is I pass the mic. I don't need to be the one writing about all the things because I don't have those lived experiences.
Yeah.
So I will pass the mic to somebody and be like, hey, you want to use my platform? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, and I mean, that's how I
important.
feel about being bigger and also white. Like, there are experiences that I cannot speak to because I'm a white woman. So, like, fat phobia started and was rooted in racism famously. So being able to make room at the table for people that can speak to that part of it better, it's just, I feel like the plus size community, like, is one of those ones that, done the right way, is so much more inclusive than any other space because there are so many different intersections within it that we have to continue kind of that work. I mean, as like a business owner, as like, I'm going to call you like a mogul, I feel like that fits for you. Like, what are you seeing in your space that kind of speaks to that or that community?
For me, I've kind of always walked in my own path. So for me, I've always been very much like, I want to provide resource, provide information, because I've always felt like, you know, when you have the right information, you're more empowered, you're informed, and you're confident in the choices and the decisions you make. So when you know about a brand that caters to or that speaks to a specific style aesthetic that is comparable to an mainstream designer, like, it allows you to see and celebrate and live in those resources available. And so that has always been my kind of my why, so to speak. And even now, like, as I've firmly grown into the role as a publisher, like, I'm now learning what that means to be a publisher who caters to a plus size audience. Now I'm learning about and kind of diving into the space of publishing and being able to, I find myself oftentimes educating a lot of advertisers, educating different business, like outside of the plus spaces, you know, about this community, about how large this community, how large this audience is, and how these brands are missing the mark by not catering to this person. In many ways, I find myself becoming an advocate outside of myself. And because I speak business and I understand the business of retail, the business of plus, I speak to that, and I use that to be able to bring brands and companies into this space. Like, that's what kind of gets me going. It's my jam. It's my jam.
Do you find that kind of education, like a Black woman and also as a plus size person, like educating on those two facets to be rewarding? Or do you find it like, do you need a break sometimes, like exhausting to have to pave that way for people that you kind of wish did it before you?
That's a heavy question. I don't even know what's a break.
Yeah, exactly.
But for me, like, this is a passion of mine. So I don't think I've ever stopped and asked that question to myself, because for me, I feel like it's something that literally gets me going, and it really excites me. I'm a nerd for this. Like, I know, like, for me to learn about like the X, Y, and Z of X, Y, and Z, like, as long as it pertains to plus, like, I'm like all involved. I think it sometimes is a little challenging because for a long time, I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I still don't know what I'm doing, but I feel like I'm better equipped. Like, you know, now that I understand I'm a publisher and what that difference is from being a blogger, from being an influencer. So my path is different. My path is unique. And I reconcile with understanding that because of those things, that recognition or acknowledgement is going to be different as well. But it doesn't motivate me any differently.
Yeah.
I know that, like, my why is still the same, and that's to bring resource, information, to empower, educate, and uplift. Like, that's what I try to stay the truest to, because that's what keeps me going.
I love that. What are your thoughts on like the differences between a plus size audience and straight size? Is there a difference? I mean,
yes.
What do you see from your end?
You know, it's interesting because you see a lot of brands trying to approach the plus consumer like a traditional straight size audience. And then they wonder why things fall flat. The plus community, the plus audience, she's nuanced, right? And so she's had to go and seek out community because she's been othered for her whole life. So in order to make a lasting impact, you have to go grassroots. You have to get involved and entrenched in the community. Right. And interestingly enough, especially on the fashion side, The plus size industry is grassroots up. If you want to like make an impact in sales and an impact in change in fashion and brand awareness, you have to go grassroots up. That means connecting with the community leaders, the thought makers, the change makers, the taste makers, and build your way up. Versus in the straight size fashion space, you start couture down, celebrity down. In the plus space, we can see models, like we can see celebrities, but we're not moved.
Yeah.
Because we recognize that privilege, right? That access of privilege. You want to make impact, you want to shift and affect change, you have to connect with the community. You have to like really engage and don't water it down, because we can sniff that out real quick. You can't come to the plus space half-assed. You can't. Yeah. Because we have been okey-doked for so long. We've been dated in the dark for so long. We've been othered for so long that we are seeking out true connection. So if you're a brand and you're trying to make inroads in the plus space, you have to connect like with those thought makers, change makers, style, like those key folks in the community. You don't know who they are? Google. Start there, because what you're not going to find is that information from any old regular marketing agency unless they're tailored to the plus size community. Like that's the only way. And there are few and far between that exist. Yeah. Same thing with PR agencies. And, yes, you have your modeling agencies, but like the ones that are like kicking butt are like a fusion between straight and plus.
Having diversity at the table. There has to be a seat for everyone.
Exactly. And so like that is the nuance. And understanding who affects what and how is what's really going to be important and really make a change, a long-term change versus a flash in a pan. Also, marketing makes a huge deal. You can't just one and doneer. There's no longer could you do if you build it, they will come. That used to work.
Yeah. Well, we would fall for it, yeah.
Right, we would, but not anymore, not in the plus space. You can't just throw something, be like, oh, look what we did for you, and think that's all you need to do.
That's why I think the plus size community is a lot more informed when it comes to buying things. Yeah, because we've been duped before, we've been tricked, we've fallen for like the one size fits all marketing. And now we want something that we're like, okay, you say it does this, like show me the proof, show me every single piece, because we have to look a lot harder for things that fit us, that fit our lifestyle, our bodies, that also make us feel good. Like it's not even just about having access to it, but is it the same kind of access that other people have? Like we have to do so much more research. So plus size brands that are doing it well are putting that research out there. Like we don't have to look that hard for it. We just have to find the right one.
That's the difference with like the brands that are working. They have connected with the community. The reader, the shopper, the audience feels some sense of ownership in that brand's success, right? That's how intertwined these brands have been. And when you look at the leaders of this space, like that's also why. And here's the fun part too. They'll love you and they'll sing your praises, but you do something wrong, they'll call you out and hold your feet to the rails. Like it's because they care so much.
Because we have less options. We can't just go to the next one.
Right. And I think oftentimes a brand will hear a call out and then they'll think, oh, well, we just don't need to be here. That's not the case in the plus space.
It's to be better.
It's to be better because there's so many people cheering and rooting for you. Like, a few years back when, a large plus size retailer, like, misstepped a couple of times and they were called out, like, instead of listening and leaning in, their reactions were reactionary, were defensive, and that's like the wrong thing. It's like, no, pause, stop, and listen.
It's what happens when there aren't plus size people in the room.
That part.
Yeah.
That part.